everyone, I'm Lauren from arc.dev, a platform that makes your jump to remote work easier by simplifying your job search. We connect software developers everywhere with great remote opportunities. And I'm delighted to announce our final guest speaker of today, Lisa Smith, Engineering Manager at Zapier. So,
hi, everybody.
Yeah, I'll give you our silent virtual round of applause that you can't hear, and welcome to the virtual stage.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. We're really happy to have you here. And for now, let's get started. I'm really excited to get to know more about Lisa and your experience. And to kick this off, as we have been with all of our interviews at this event, since it's all about job seeking, we'll pretend we're in a job interview. And I'm going to ask you that intimidating question of, tell me about yourself, Lisa.
Oh, well, where to begin? I think the easiest way to sum up my career in tech is that it's been nonlinear. I've done all sorts of things. I've been all different kinds of engineers. I've been working with code since before there was a Google, so I've been around for a while. I'm currently in charge of the team at Zapier, who we're responsible for the developer platform that everybody builds their Zapier integrations on. So we have a big, important job that we support both internal and external folks. And my partner and I live with our 5 kids together. And we just got a new fridge yesterday. So that's the big exciting thing in my life right now.
2020 excitement.
Right? Exactly.
So how did you first decide to, it sounds like you've been through a lot of different industries. How did you end up in engineering? And also, how did you end up working remotely for the first time?
So I went to school to become a librarian and was one for a while. And everyone I met would say, really? When they found out I was a librarian. So after a time, I began to suspect that there was a person job type mismatch happening. But I've always been excited by technology. I was always the tinkerer of the family, the person who was the first with a computer. I was the only girl in the 8th grade computer science club at my middle school. And so I taught myself code while I was in library school. I took the curriculum for information science, but it was more theoretical, like natural language processing for databases and that kind of stuff. So I taught myself how to code at a time when you could do that easily because there wasn't much out there. And somebody took a chance on me for my first job, which is great. And so I've been in tech ever since. My first remote job, the job previous to where I am now, we were half-time remote. So 3 days a week remote, 2 days in the office. And that was kind of a good springboard to getting a fully remote position. But Zapier has been remote since founding. So if you want to work for them, you're going to be remote regardless of pandemic times or not. And it's really, it's wonderful to see how people from around the world can come together and work on teams. My team enjoys the widest geographic distribution of any team at Zapier. I have folks in 5 countries now. And so that's super fun. There is no single hour where we can meet together. So we do a lot of asynchronous work. But yeah, Zapier was my first fully remote job. So I'm fairly recent to it. But it's been a journey, a progressive journey of more and more like independent responsibility and a partially remote gig before this one.
That's awesome. I'm actually really curious to ask now, what countries, like where does your team live?
So I have engineers in Taiwan, and I have a global digital nomad who has been various times in New Zealand, Australia, and back in the US for a while, and now is currently in the US Virgin Islands. I have somebody in Portugal. I have somebody in Manchester, UK. I've got 3 different, so in the US West Coast, but also one of those people was a digital nomad as well. So all over the country in a van called Serenity that you can follow on Twitter. And then, so he's now in California, and I have a new engineer starting who's going to be in Portland. And I have my designer is in Seattle, and my product manager is in Austin, Texas. And then I sit alone in the Eastern time zone of the US. So
wow,
we've got quite the spread. Yes.
So you never really meet all together synchronously at once. It sounds
so.
Like
Right. So pre-pandemic times, Zapier has 2 in-person retreats a year where they bring the entire company together in one place. And then we also have an engineering retreat. So in theory, there should be 3 times a year where we're all together in one space. But yeah, typical working week, we do not have that. We record meetings for people who are in time zone opposite places when we're having meetings. But I have had 3 a.m. meetings. I will admit to not being my best at 3 a.m. So try to keep those to a minimum. But yeah, you do what you have to.
Wow, that sounds exciting to be on a team with so many people like around the world in different places, different languages, different lifestyles and different food to talk about.
Time zones and currency and idiomatic language certainly does take on a whole new like spin when you're trying to say something like the whole 9 yards to somebody who's like, I don't have any idea what that means at all. So
yeah, I think you have to adapt your language skills too when you're on an international team. I know with 100%. My non-native English speaking friends, I try to, some of them I mess around and just talk as fast as I can because I know they can handle it. But, like slow down, avoid those. You realize what strange things you say in your language.
You absolutely do. Like there is one job when I was a librarian, somebody came in looking for a dictionary of idioms. And I was like, I wish I could help you because that would be a super swell thing to have for people who come to this country and are like, what now? I don't understand any of those words. Like I know all the individual words mean, but that sentence doesn't mean anything to me. So yeah, it's a challenge, but we get past it.
It's a fun challenge, I think. I could go on about language stuff forever because that's my hobby. But let's go back to the remote job search process. And I'd love to hear about your, like the application. I guess for you, this question, the answer might be a little different about the application process at Zapier and how people find a job there. And I know yours is different because they found you, but we can get into that later. So maybe you can talk from like the hiring perspective, like where do people find you? What does it look like when they're applying?
Absolutely. So Zapier.com/jobs is where they all live. And we are in a large hiring push. We are we're right now 400 people, soon to be 450 and hoping to be 650 by the end of next year. So that's a lot of open positions over the next year. So if you don't see something you like today, check back tomorrow, there'll probably be something. They're getting released pretty frequently. So on that site, we have a very non-traditional application form. It's not like, click every college or university you've ever attended to, tell us all about the last 10 jobs you have. There's a place you can upload and parse your CV if you want to, but it asks you a series of questions designed to get to know you a little bit better because we don't really necessarily, I don't want to say we don't care about the number of years experience you have. We care more about what qualities you're bringing to the team. So there's going to be a number of questions that ask that. Once your application is in, our recruiters are very diligent about responding. No one goes without a response. And if you do a short poke to the jobs email, will get you a response immediately. And you're taken through the process that consists of a job fit interview. And that could be with anybody from the recruiter to a hiring manager or the director above the hiring manager, depending on who's available. And so after job fit, there's typically work product that you have to produce. Depending on the role you're looking at, there's either a narrative or a code sample. I'm working to get there's a time limit on the code sample right now, and I'm working to get that removed because I feel like that's sort of inherently biased. So there's a code sample that you work on at home, and you are graded on that. And then once that's graded, there is a technical review for engineers where you go through the code process, and there we're looking for you to be able to talk through your solution. We know that there's a time limit on it and that it's not, you're not going to be able to do your A-level work there, but take us through what you would have done if you had more time, or the things that you intentionally left out, or the things that you intentionally focused on to get through that, like pragmatically how you solved the problem with code. Once the code review interview is done, there is like a values and culture type interview so that you can learn more about values that we hold at Zapier that are important to us, and we can learn how you feel about those. But our values are very clearly stated on the website, and I can tell you from being on both sides of the coin that it does what it says on the package. It's one of the reasons that I love working at Zapier. We have a great set of corporate values that we hold to, and it's easy to see in everything we do. So that permeates through the application process. And then I think after that, that's done. We, on our side, will be keeping you informed every step of the way. Our recruiting team is amazing. They are super efficient and very free with their communication. If at any stage you don't progress to the next stage, you're likely to be kept for other open positions. So just because this wasn't the right job doesn't mean that there's not a job for you at Zapier. People do tend to apply multiple times. We had a trivia question at our last in-person retreat. How many times did you apply to Zapier before you got your job? And the company average is 3. But someone at my table had applied 6 times before they got their job. That's like way more times than I think I could stomach. But the first no is not the end answer. So don't let that be discouraging. And yeah, so for me, I didn't apply at all. I was approached by a recruiter. One of our recruiting team reached out to me and asked if I'd like to have a conversation. And I had been using Zapier as a product for quite some time before that. So I said, yes, I would like to have that conversation. And it just went from there. But I did all the other steps. Like I did a work product for engineering management. You have to, you have a choice of a couple of scenarios. You have to have a narrative and a diagram, and you have to be able to talk through it at a review. But yeah, everybody has some sort of work product that they're going to produce. And we appreciate you devoting that much time. We want to get to know each other as much as we can during the process.
That's awesome. It's really great insight for people who want to apply there to just hear how they can make it through the different steps. I'd love to dive a little deeper back into what you were saying about, if you can share this with us, the kind of questions that people are asked in just the first step that they fill out in writing. What kind of questions do you ask? And
yeah, so it's kind of like, it depends on the role, honestly. Let me see if I can find a really good one that would be worthwhile to talk about. But it's basically like, tell us about you, and tell us about why this job spoke to you. Mm-hmm. And, tell us something from your recent experience. Let's see, I'm going to pick an engineer because that makes sense to me. Mm-hmm. Oh, here's an engineering manager one. That feels really good. So you briefly tell us why you'd be a great fit for this role. How much experience do you have, like with numbers? What's been the most challenging problem you have faced, and how did you solve it? Mm-hmm. Tell us about your favorite technical problems to solve with your team or by yourself. Talk about the cadence of communication with your most recent team. How often do you have one-on-ones? Because that's a super important part of Zapier culture, is one-on-one culture. Do you have experience? Oh, because that's what we're doing now. Working in a microservices environment, because that's important to us right now. So some specifics there. But yeah, we want to know, tell us some stories about real world job experiences. Tell me about a time when. It's a fairly, is a common format for that. And we want to hear about how you tackle this problem or how you face this one-on-one situation. How did you interact? I think we asked during one of the interviews, like, did you have a conflict with a team member? Tell us about that and tell us how you resolved it. How did you work through it? Whether it was good or bad. Tell us about the last big mistake you made, and what did you learn from it? Because nobody's perfect. So how did you get through that? So those kinds of situations, like not always super comfortable, but like very real. Because we want to know the real you as much as you can in a job interview. We spend a lot of time together so that you can get to know Zapier as well as we can get to know you, because it is a two-way street. And we want to make sure that you've had the opportunity to see as many different facets of the company as possible.
Yeah, it sounds like a really thorough process, even before they get to the human side of things, so you can really read and learn about the person in advance. When you're looking at these answers to the questions, what do you think are the mistakes that people can make that would come out as red flags or just turn you off from a potential candidate? Like, what are the common pitfalls here?
So I would say common pitfalls include like being too extreme in any response to anything, right? So like, the typical question, like, do you prefer to work by yourself or work on a team? And I think we all know the right answer is both, right? Like, because, you know, there are times when you want to heads down and focus on what you're working on. And there are times when you need to work collaboratively, especially in the kind of environment we have. And also not emphasizing sort of what your communication style is. So being very clear in your communication is crucial to having an asynchronous work environment like we do. We're very intentional and out loud about everything we do. One of our corporate values is default to transparency. So you do everything as publicly as possible, which means, you know, you are risking setting yourself up for a very public failure, but that's okay, because one of our other core values is growth through feedback, and also empathy, no ego. So, you know, everyone is working sort of at the same level. We're none of us perfect. We have incident channels because we have incidents. We have one right now called, won't name the name of the company, but fires, like, because there's bad things happening with their integration. So like, there are places where we are working stuff out, but we do it all in public together. So if you can show how you communicate, show that you can communicate clearly through the written word, because a lot of what we do is going to be in Slack or in our async, which is our communication tool. It's like a blog. So a lot of the communication happens in written form. So we're going to want to see that as a thing. So if somebody asked me, like, how many words should I do in this? And I was like, here's the Weasley answer: as many as it takes, right? But that's really, it's actually sound advice, because what you want to do is get your point across as succinctly as possible, but with, you know, using as much detail as you need. So maybe don't write a 100-page essay, but also don't write a one-word sentence. You know, it's like somewhere in between.
So getting all the information you need as succinctly as possible.
Absolutely. Because, you know, remembering that you're communicating, before I started working at Zapier and I was a hiring manager, I used to have to review resumes in an online parsing tool. And it's very much akin to a billboard on the side of the road. Like, you need to be able to grab me in under a minute. So like, I need you to front load your information with the things that you want me to know right away. You have between a minute and a half to grab a hiring manager's attention with your resume. So make sure that you're not putting some bland statement of purpose at the top that doesn't really have any impact. If you've got a story to tell me right away. Tell me with your job history. Tell me with the project you've worked on. Emphasize the things that you did that you enjoyed, the things that you like, puzzles that you liked solving, especially in engineering. That's a great thing for us to hear. Tell me how you brought value to the team that you are on now. How did you solve a problem that saved money? Did you solve a problem that saved time? Did you solve a problem that was, you know, even if it was just your own workflow, did you automate something? If you're applying to Zapier, talk about things you automate. We're really into that.
Of course. So speaking of standing out, how do you think you stood out? Like, to be not just grab Zapier's attention, but be grabbed by them and employed unexpectedly, I guess. What's something unique that you did throughout your career or your life that you think helped grab their attention?
Well, I think my nonlinear career path definitely sets me aside. Somebody who has worked in multiple different industries or worked in different kinds of jobs has a different sort of empathy. They have a different viewpoint. They bring a different perspective on any sort of problem. I am sort of an engineer at heart. I'm a problem solver. So, you know, I'm a fixer. That's kind of like what I do in my everyday life too. So like, it was sort of a natural inclination for me, but like, solving problems and the story of how you solved a problem. So I had I have stuff on my LinkedIn page about the talks that I do. I have my personal website has like my speaking engagements and the places where I volunteer on it. So like, lots of places I live my life out loud, which I know with the way social media is, that can be sort of uncomfortable. But I don't really like, I don't spend a lot of time on Twitter. I consume more on Twitter than I tweet, but LinkedIn is a great place to share resources, share articles, share your thoughts on things. Writing as much as you can in places is great. I've contributed to Power to Fly and a couple of other classes that I've taught. I taught for Girl Develop It. Like, so I'm sort of an out loud advocate for diversity in technology. And that I think was appealing to them because I'll give us middling marks on diversity at Zapier. We're working on it for sure, just like everybody should be. But right now in engineering management, there are only 3 women engineering managers out of 35. So, and we just, well, although I'm sorry, 4, one starts in January. So we just hired another one, but like, so right now our diversity, at least gender wise, is not great in management. And so, being a female person, I think was attractive to start off with. And I know that it's not great to say, but I think like they had some OKRs behind diversity. And so I'm sure I fit into a bunch of like targets that they were looking for.
Check some boxes.
It's fine. I check some boxes for people, which is fine. It's okay. I lean into it. It's okay.
So did that actually attract you to the team, seeing that there was maybe a lack of diversity and you wanted to be a part of?
Yeah, I'm somebody who likes to help solution and drive that. At my previous job, I was kind of the D&I champion for the whole company. It was a much smaller company, and so I was the only woman in management at that place. There were some in engineering, there were some in finance, but I enjoy that kind of work. And I know not everybody does, because it can be emotionally exhausting and you're taking on, a lot of extra unpaid labor. But to me, it's super important. I was always the only woman engineer every place I worked until I got to probably like 2 or 3 jobs ago. So I was in tech a really long time before I was not alone. And it was super isolating for me. And so that was really my impetus behind starting the Women Who Code chapter where I am, which is probably what got me noticed. But I figured if I was alone, then there were plenty of other people who were alone, and maybe we could get together and not be alone and have that support group. And so that has been really great to both enhance networking, but also to have that shared safe space where we can talk about what it's like to be a woman in tech, where we can offer each other the support, and basically that hand up where I didn't have one when I was coming up is what I like being. So
I love seeing the way you support other women in tech, and also just the way you look at the challenge as something that excites you and that you want to make an impact. That's fantastic. I'd love to go down that road of the boxes with tech. So of course, you're a female engineering manager. You're also a woman of color, and someone who I've seen you're writing, these are not my words, that you consider yourself to be an old person.
Yes, I'm an old. I identify as old. Yes.
So what advice do you have for other people who check those same boxes, how to overcome these challenges or feelings of isolation that they might have experienced or still be experiencing? What kind of challenges have you faced, and how do you approach these?
All of them.
A big question.
So I mean, I work in an area of the country where we have a good amount of tech, but it's not like, say, Silicon Valley, where like the primary drivers of the economy are tech. So we're all spread out sort of in little, pockets. And so I recognized that fairly early on. And Girl Develop It was an outlet that I pursued originally. Someone had asked me, I think, to TA a class. And then I taught a class, and then I became a full-time instructor for them. I'm not full-time, but like, an instructor that had a full-time class load. And that opened up the possibilities for me. So when I was we have a local conference called All Things Open. And I volunteered to work at the table for Girl Develop It. And while I was there, I saw a logo for Women Who Code, who I had never heard of before. And so I started looking into them. And the next year, while I was volunteering at the Girl Develop It table, I was sort of low-key recruiting for Women Who Code. And then the following year, when I had a Women Who Code table, I was low-key recruiting for my open engineering positions at Spreedly. So like I, just basically take every opportunity that I can to connect with other humans, whether it be in person or virtual. Find your community, find those people who, there's always going to be somebody who's doing something at least similar to what you're doing. There's always going to be an organization to support it. And if there isn't, then you start one. I saw the Women Who Code website, and it was like, there's a chapter near you. And I looked, and there wasn't. And so I said, hey, there's no chapter in Raleigh-Durham. And they're like, hey, you should start one. So I did, and I know not everybody's up for that challenge, but there's always going to be a group of people who will help organize around that. And the energy that you find when you throw in your energy with people that feel a similar way about issues is unparalleled. Like, you can do all kinds of things when you're excited about it. And if you find other people who are excited about it, you can move mountains. So starting Women Who Code was really sort of a catalyzing event for me here. We grew, like, so the very first, we had our kickoff meeting, and we had about 45 or 50 people at it, which was great. I declared that we were all instantly friends. That's how that was going to go. And the next day I got on a plane and I flew to San Francisco for my first Women Who Code Connect conference. And I met leaders from all over the globe, which was amazing and so energizing, and got an idea from the Richmond chapter to they had brunch. They had it quarterly. I do it every month. In non-pandemic times, we get together once a month at a low-key place for just food and talking. And through that, we've gotten people jobs. We've gotten people into code school. We've gotten people better jobs. We've gotten people hooked up with people that could help them solve a code problem. We've gotten people hooked up with people who could solve them with a larger engineering problem. We've made managers out of individual contributors. We've made, just by having a Women Who Code event at this one brewery in North Carolina, I got somebody into code school, and now they're a mentor for other people. So like, it's just that continual cycle of getting people excited and interested and being able to leverage that for more good.
That's amazing. I think it sounds like it's probably a little more difficult now because we're all so isolated in the pandemic. So how can people grow their network and meet people and do these awesome things from their
remotely?
I mean, or wherever they are.
The good news is that just about everybody, like all Women Who Code chapters, have shifted to having online events. And our mission statement is to have events as close to free, if not all free, as possible. So there is a wealth of opportunity out there. Look, Google the thing that you're interested in and your local geographic area, and I guarantee you there's a meetup, and they have likely shifted to online. So it's not quite as collegial as it had been. Like, there's not as much time for just casual networking, but there's definitely other people there. There's definitely people you can hook up with. There's people you can have one-on-ones with. We use a tool at Zapier called Donut. It's a plugin for Slack, and it just randomly pairs you up with somebody else in the Slack. And there's a bunch of other Slacks that I'm part of that also use Donut. So I'm a part of the RANS leadership Slack. RANS and Repose is an engineering management blog. And the Slack that goes along with it has, I think we're at 100,000. Like, it's huge. It's this enormous Slack, but it also uses Donut. So I've met with engineering managers around the globe. I spent 15 minutes with a lovely gentleman who said the name of his company 4 or 5 times before I recognized it as what we say is Adidas. He was saying Adidas because he's in Germany and that's how they say it. So look at me, and I was like, what's that word again? I don't think I understand it. But meeting people from all over, you never have to leave your home. You can Zoom chat with anybody. So approach people on LinkedIn. My Calendly is open for anybody who wants to come and hang out with me. There's definitely people who are out there willing. Like, I found a management coach who works with me at no charge on RANS. So go, if you don't know where to look, email me or ping me on LinkedIn, and I'll help you find your community. But they're out there, and even in pandemic times are meeting and doing stuff together.
Yeah, it's amazing to see how everyone, companies, communities, were all adapting and making it work thanks to technology. I'm really glad this didn't happen 15 years ago.
I know. I don't know what we would have done. We would have been much more isolated, and there would have been a lot more scariness. But yeah, we have Zoom, so we're okay.
Yeah, all these awesome event platforms. So shout out to Hopin while we're at it.
Exactly. Hopin has been my favorite event platform. I've been doing a lot of online speaking, and this has been the easiest one to use. So yay, thank you, Hopin.
Yeah, it's a fun one. I especially actually part of the reason we chose this for this event is the networking feature, which it does that random matching of you, like speed networking, where you match with someone for 5 minutes for a video chat. And I've had a lot of fun in it at our past events too. So
yeah, it's so great. Talk to people. You never know who you're going to meet and what that's going to lead to. And networking, I know, gets a bad rap sometimes, but it really is just about connecting people with information and people with people. And if you can do that, no matter how casual it is, it will lead to something else. Like I said, casual conversation at a Women in Tech, a Women Who Code brunch got somebody a brand new job who had just gotten into the profession, and they've had 3 jobs since, and now one of them is at the last company that I was at because I recruited her in there. So you never know where those connections are going to come from.
Yeah, I've had some unexpected connections lead me to things I never expected either.
Absolutely.
So you never know, just make some professional friendships out there, and you never know what value you can have for each other. And
you'll find people are very generous with their time. Like you're not really going to run into, unless you're trying to cold call sell them something, you'll find people are extremely receptive and will give of their time if you ask them some, some reasonable questions. Not tell me everything, but like, hey, I saw you did this. Tell me about that. And people will share with you pretty much anything you want.
Do you have any tips for people here who might be sitting in the audience wanting to network but dreading it because they don't know what to say or where to begin? Do you have any tips for how to make these real connections virtually?
Yeah, absolutely. So like be armed with one question. And if you ask somebody one question, they will talk for a while, just like you can see right here. And so that's a good tip for both virtual and in-person networking. Ask one question and then you can kind of stand back and the other person will do the majority of the talking. And then something they say is going to lead you to another question. So just keep asking questions and you'll learn a lot. And there's not a lot of pressure on you you don't have to tap dance or anything like that. I'm extremely non-talented from any sort of performing arts standpoint. So I just talk, which is fine.
Which you're great at too. You're sharing amazing, beautiful gems of advice that I know everyone should be taking from you, especially if you want to apply to Zapier, because we just got some inside tips on the exact hiring process. So let's talk a little more about optimizing your online presence for your job search, because clearly you did it very well. Competitive place to apply, like Zapier just found you. So what does your profile look like? What have you added on there? I know you talk about speaking experience, communities, a lot of different things.
Yeah, absolutely. So like, join groups and make sure that they're on your LinkedIn. Like if you put Women Who Code on your profile, you're instantly connected to women who code around the globe. So find those kind of communities, any local meetup, like we've got, just around me, we've got R ladies, we've got Pi ladies, we've got ladies that UX, we've got, women who code, girls who code, chick tech. There's all sorts of avenues that you can pursue. Just look on meetup local to you physically, and then start looking on meetup anywhere. Like if there's a topic you're interested in, I guarantee you there's a meetup for it. And so include those on your LinkedIn groups that you're part of. Make sure that when you're going to events like that you're getting people's contact information. When you go to a conference and you hear a speaker you like, follow them on Twitter, see who they're following, reach out to those people. That's a super easy way to do it. Make sure that when you do stuff at your job, that you include it in your LinkedIn profile. Like, don't just say you were at this place from this date to this date. Say like a thing that you did while you were there, because the keyword parsers for LinkedIn are super powerful. There was somebody a couple years ago who did just sort of an informal survey, and they added interested in blockchain on their LinkedIn and got like tons of, wow, hey, we heard you're interested in blockchain. You want to come do blockchain with us? So like all you have to do is see what the hot spots are and make sure that your resume is keyword loaded with those things. If you have, look, don't lie, but like if you have experience in those places, make sure that you add those things that people are looking for, because that makes you infinitely searchable. Recruiters definitely start at LinkedIn. We have a new tool that we just started using at Zapier called Gem. That's like a plugin or an overlay for LinkedIn. And I can submit sourced candidates directly from LinkedIn with like a button click, and it goes into our HR system. So those systems are in use all over the place. People who are sourcing are looking for you. So if you've got anything, make sure you include it in there. And then do stuff. Like, I mean, not everybody likes public speaking. That's the thing that I enjoy, but you can write, you can do that all by yourself. And there's always places to put it. There's tons of platforms that you can publish on, and then tweet it, and then it'll get picked up. You're not going to be guaranteed to go viral overnight, but just keep at it. And, like I said, hook up with other people and they can amplify you. Make a network of people and you can amplify each other. One of the best things I did was through the Rand's Leadership Circle, we have a women's channel there, and we did a bio writing circle. So we all gathered together and we broke up into small groups of 3. And one person would tell their story, the other person would ask them questions, and the third person would take notes. Because it's super hard when you're writing your own bio, especially for anything. It's super hard to like look at yourself objectively. So you tell your story to somebody else, they pick out what the hot spots are, and someone else writes it down for you, and boom, you've got your bio that you can include for any speaking proposal. If you haven't spoken publicly and you want to, there are tons of tools. If you haven't checked out Write Speak Code, that is an amazing opportunity. Even if the conferences aren't happening live, they have tons of resources on their site for you to be able to make your first technical proposal to a conference. Start small. There's a great local conference here that actually started, I guess we're at 6 or 7 years now, but it started super small and we were up over 15,000 people last year. So like I've been speaking there for a couple of years. It's a very welcoming audience. Your local Women Who Code chapter would love to have you come speak on literally anything. So you can find a small receptive audience and get your first tech talk in and then pitch it to other places. Because the first thing they ask you when you submit a conference talk proposal is, have you given this anyplace else? Be like, yes, I did. I gave it to local Women Who Code chapter or whatever. So start small and do things. You got to build it, it takes some time to build it up. But again, I'm old, so I've had lots of time to put stuff together. I don't know if I'm the perfect paragon of this, but you just keep adding to it over time.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I think people, if you're interested in blogging at all, you could check out, once we release the recordings from all of our talks, we had Steph Smith yesterday who talked all about blogging and creating a blog that will also improve your career prospects. So that's great. It gives you stuff to share on LinkedIn, look cool there too. I mean, just go. Even if you feel like you're bad at it, just try. And then no one will, your little blog probably won't be seen by anyone until you share it. So you can at least get started and then delete the bad ones later.
Exactly. And honestly, if you spend any time on LinkedIn at all, you'll see a variety of things at a variety of quality levels. It's fine. It's fine. Like maybe don't go super full on controversial about things. My most controversial opinion is that I feel like crispy tots are objectively better than fries. But beyond that, I don't really have a lot of strongly held beliefs. I don't like the use of guys as an inclusive term. So that's my one thing that I campaign on.
Do this now that we're on this is a sidetrack a bit. What is your alternative to guys? I know on our team we've done all kinds of weird things like y'all and party people and
sure. Yeah. So I conveniently live in the South, so y'all is socially acceptable, but honestly, it's acceptable everywhere. It's gender neutral and it's super friendly and collective. I say humans. I say friends most frequently. Esteemed colleagues. There are tons and tons and tons, depending on the room you're talking about, there are tons and tons of ways. I think friends is my most default too, because I just assume everyone is friends. That's just how I roll. So
yeah. I don't know, the Southern accent coming out with y'all. I don't know how I feel about that coming out of me, but it works.
It works.
A regular one. It's just the English language doesn't have one of those gender neutral.
I know.
You all.
I know.
Words.
We can keep working on it, but there's plenty of ways. I think the working on it is almost more important than what word you use. Just making sure that you're conscious of it. And when you're in a room that has, or a virtual conference that has more than 2 humans in it, making sure that you address it so that everybody feels included, because all it takes is for you to be the only woman on a team and for somebody to say guys, and you're like, oh, that's everybody but me. And the number of times I felt that way just makes it more and more and more important for me to be a champion for that as a thing. Yeah,
it's a great thing to try to train ourselves out of. I know that was my go-to without even meaning to. So over time,
right. Absolutely
retrain my language there. But it's fun. If y'all Google alternatives to you guys, there's weird stuff out there. And if you have a fun team to play around with, we've had a lot of fun at ARC just trying different ways to
Absolutely. And my light just went out. If you use Slack, you can set up a bot to we have bots to remind you to use inclusive language. Those are super helpful. And making sure that you're always trying. You're not going to be perfect. Nobody's going to be perfect, but making sure that you're trying at least in every opportunity to make sure that you're including everybody.
Yeah, and just always trying to improve and kind of retrain your brain there. Yeah. So let's go back. I know we could talk forever about so many of these great topics. I really enjoyed chatting with you. But back to the topic of the remote job search. Mm-hmm. Can you list 3 top key soft skills to land a remote engineering job? What are the main soft skills you look for if you're hiring someone at Zapier?
Well, so first of all, I started a campaign with some friends too. These are power skills. These are not soft skills. These are the crucial differentiators. Like, I don't want to be too like broad when I say this, but like anybody can learn how to code, right? It's just manipulating stuff, right? So the other parts of yourself that you bring that are important to me are the ability to communicate, both verbally and in writing. Those are super important. Empathy is a strong one. Like if you can see a problem from someone else's perspective, even if it's something you haven't experienced yourself, that is extremely valuable to me. Empathy in software is few and far between. And so I look for it specifically in my engineers to make sure that they understand that the things that we're writing are for humans to use. And so may work technically, but if it's like super painful to use, people aren't going to use it and they're not going to be happy using it. And you're not going to have more users if you do that. And I would say also like just the ability to listen and absorb, right? So like not just be thinking about the next thing that you're going to say, but listening, active listening is really crucial, especially when you're in a remote environment and, you know, you're on Zoom calls. Perhaps there are language differences. Perhaps there are time differences. Like one of the meetings I have, for some people, it's 10 o'clock at night, and for other people, it's 7 in the morning. And neither one of those parts of the spectrum are great for anybody. So recognizing when people are tired or that, you know, like you have to modify your message for the group that you're in. But you do that also by listening to what people are saying and listen to what they're not saying, and making sure that you're giving space for everybody to contribute. So those are my big 3.
Great. Those are great things to work on. And they're definitely, you're not the only one who said that. There are many things that are reappearing throughout every talk. The empathy is really important, especially when working with people where you can't necessarily judge how they're feeling as well. Like maybe you behind your reflective glass, I'm like, how is he feeling right now? You have to pay more attention to people.
Exactly. And, you know, you can't always rely on people to have the same communication level or technique that you do, right? Like I'm a very out loud kind of person. I tend to talk my way through life, but not everybody does that. A lot of people like to think about their answers before they give them. So give those folks space. Maybe a way to do that is to provide the agenda for a meeting in advance, or ask somebody a question in writing that you were going to talk about on a Zoom later, so that they have time to gather their thoughts and make sure that they have what they need to be as productive as possible.
Yeah, and that's a great idea. And so people, I guess, like us, the talkers, make sure we don't talk through the whole meeting without them having enough time to speak up.
Exactly right.
So what if people, once we leave this talk, what do you think is the number one piece of advice that you want people to take away from you?
I think my thing that I can tell you is every open job rec is a problem that needs to be solved. And so what you want to do in your application is paint yourself as the answer. I am the perfect fit for this job for these reasons. And if you can answer that kind of question, almost the other stuff almost doesn't matter. If you can say, like, I see what you need here are these things, and I bring this in response, then you're the right candidate for that job.
That is a golden tidbit, and everyone should write that down. If not, we'll probably quote it on Twitter or something so you won't forget. But yeah, that's a really great thing to see it as the problem, and then figure out why are you the solution, and make sure you tell that story too.
Exactly. That's the story I want to hear.
Yeah. So, okay, for everyone here who may be interested in working at Zapier, what should be on their checklist? This final item before we head into our Q&A session. What should they write down right now on a checklist of the things that they should do before applying to prepare, like research or questions to plan interviews or?
Well, like I said, if you have any inclination to automate, do it. Go and build a Zap. It takes seconds. And also there's Zap templates on there that we've already pre-built, so you can just like grab one and play with it. If you can talk about a Zap that you're using during the application process, you float to the top of the pool. I guarantee it.
All right. So use the product, get excited about it.
Exactly. Use the product and get excited about it, and know like why it's exciting, right? Like automation is big right now, and it's for a number of reasons, like especially during pandemic times, people are having to do more with less. So if you have to do that, you need to find a way to work smarter, not harder. And, you know, our the famous, one of our other corporate values is build the robot, don't be a robot. If you do something more than twice, you should probably build a Zap for it. That's our guiding principle.
Yes, it's amazing the kind of thing you can automate nowadays, and it's fun.
Yes.
I'm sure you love seeing other people get excited for it because
Yes, absolutely, yes.
Great. So let's change gears here and dig into some of these awesome questions we have coming up. Find the top of these questions. Here we go. Okay. What skills do you look for? I know we covered this a bit, but maybe if there's something you'd like to add to address this question, what skills do you look for in a prospective engineer you want to employ? So anything we haven't covered you'd like to add in here?
Sure. Yeah. So like I want to see pragmatic code. I want you to be able to make a decision based on the problem, not based on like a specific rigid tool set. So like if you only know one thing, the classic saw of, you know, when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. I want you to be able to think through all the possible solutions, weigh them for their merits, and be able to explain to me why you chose something. So think about like you're going to be asked like what technologies you use. When you do your work sample for us, you can use any language or framework that you want to get your job done. We just need you to be able to explain it. So whatever tool you're using, know why and what the trade-offs are for it. That's a crucial thing.
A great piece of advice. Let's see. Next, we have Alejandra asking, do you think it's good to apply to Zapier through the website? And do you think it's good to contact the recruiter by LinkedIn or other platforms? And she says, thanks for being here.
Of course. Thank you for having me. So if you know anybody at Zapier, definitely reach out to them. And if you don't know anybody at Zapier, like talk to me. I'm happy to talk you through the process. Any company that you're applying for, if you know somebody on the inside, there's always an internal referral program. One of the hardest things to do in life, honestly, is hiring. It's like alchemy. There's a lot of things that are left to chance. So an internal referral really speaks to, I would want to work with this person again, or I know something about this person. I've seen them in action and I can recommend them. I want them to be a colleague. That floats your resume to the top faster than anything else, an internal referral. And if you don't have that, the website, our recruiters are great. They'll get right back to you. If you meet them on LinkedIn, great. But if you apply through the website, it's as good as talking to somebody at Zapier because they are right on that. And if you don't, I'm just lisa.smith@zapier.com. Email me and we'll sort it out.
Awesome. That's so great that you're open to sharing your advice and helping people out so much. It's
happy to. We're always, like I said, we need 250 more people to join us at Zapier next year. Got to find them somewhere. So it might as well be you. You're here watching. Come talk to me.
Get going. Email Elisa and start refreshing that page on Zapier job page every day. So Ani is asking, from librarian to Zapier, what jobs did you work in between and how did you make the career switch?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I was every kind of librarian you can be except for a law librarian. So I've worked in huge university libraries down to the smallest library in the state of North Carolina, both in physical size, 1,500 square feet, and budget. I did overnight news insertion for a newspaper. And then I became the online content editor there. And then I became the online coordinator. So I worked at a newspaper in various different roles that weren't necessarily online, but then became online. I fixed computers for wealthy humans who lived in a resort town. That was a thing to do on the weekend. I was mostly a surrogate child or grandchild. They really just were looking for somebody to talk to. I've had kind of every possible job, honestly. So I've worked retail. I've never been a server, but I have worked food service. So everything. And the way I made the transition was honestly because somebody took a chance on me. I had the fortune of working at the University of North Carolina when we had a very visionary chancellor. And he decided that the way to engender empathy for the students was to take the faculty who largely were not from North Carolina on a bus tour. So we drove all around the state. We ate a lot of barbecue. And on this tour, the very first day, the very first leg, the chancellor came and sat down next to me. And so we're chitty-chatting. And I was telling him about, we were talking about search engine technology, the height of which at the time was Ask Jeeves. So there I'm also dating myself.
I remember that.
Exactly. Ask Jeeves was hot at the time. It was pre-Google and it searched all the other search engines for you. It was great. It saved time. So we talked about this for a while and he said, Lisa, I would like to ask you, you seem super passionate about this. Why are you working in a job that seems almost exactly opposite of what you'd really like to be doing with your life? And I was like, Thank you for asking me that soul-searing question on day one, sir. I am honored to not have an answer for you right now. I don't know, but I'm going to work on that. And I coincidentally on that trip met the person who would give me my first online job. So it was just one of those random chance things. And at the time, it was sort of easy to break into tech because honestly, nobody knew anything about building web pages. We taught ourselves as we went. I learned active server pages, and the server sat in the closet across the hall from my desk. I could go reboot it whenever I needed to. So you start small and you keep building. Take something from every job you have and leverage it for the next job. I got a job working as a PHP developer without ever having professionally written a line of PHP because I did a great job on their work sample and I was super enthusiastic and they took a chance on me. So if you see a job open that you're excited about, apply for it. Frequently, not at Zapier, but frequently job descriptions and job postings are written with sort of a ridiculous laundry list of qualities that no single human could ever embody. I talk to companies about not doing that. But in the meantime, if you see something that's interesting, take a chance. So what's the worst that can happen? They say, no, you're not out anything. I know rejection gets exhausting after a while, but you're never going to know if you don't ask. And women tend to only apply for jobs when they have 100% of the listed qualifications, whereas men will apply when they only have 60% of the qualifications. So they're going to get the job because they applied, right? So stop and apply for everything you see. Take chances. Everywhere you look is going to be something. Maybe if you're just fresh out of code school, don't apply for a senior position, but anything else is really on the table. If there's something about it that excites you or that you know something about it and you have an interest in it, that's really appealing to me. And frankly, I love code school grads because those are folks who are career switchers just like me. They have an energy about them that they're self-starters, they're autodidacts, they're really into the stuff that they're doing. That kind of energy you can't find everywhere. So if you were thinking about going to code school, go to code school. It's going to work out for you eventually.
Yeah, that's great advice too. If you don't apply, you'll definitely not get the job. And the worst that happens if you apply is if you don't apply, you definitely won't get it. And if you apply, you will still not get it. But that's the worst that can happen. It's the same as if you didn't apply. So
Exactly right. You're not out anything but a little time that it took to go through the resume. And every application you submit is practice for other applications. Mm-hmm. And if you make it through the Zapier process and you are not successful, they will give you feedback on where the parts of your candidacy that were lacking, and you can use that to improve for something else. So always reach out.
Yeah, it's rare to get that feedback. I think that's really special. So everyone out there, just go for it and try to get a job at Zapier. And if not, you'll learn something.
Exactly.
So we have another question here. Do you think Africans have advantages of landing jobs at Zapier? It sounds like you hire globally. You have people all over.
Do hire globally. Yeah, you can live literally anywhere and work for Zapier. I don't know that we have any, I don't know that there's any place specifically that has an advantage over anyone else. We're trying to do more time zone alignment on teams so that we don't end up with teams like mine that have this huge spread. So we're looking for folks right now in APAC region pretty heavily. We also have a lot of folks concentrated EMEA. So we have entities now in the UK and Canada because we had a critical mass of humans that work there. So if you're in the UK, Canada, or US, you're an official Zapier employee, and everybody else is an international contractor, but you get the same benefits and perks and salary that you would otherwise. So it's just tax reasons that I don't fully understand. We incorporate where we have enough humans to make it worthwhile for everybody. So yeah, I don't know that any region of the world has any advantage. We kind of want people from everywhere. Our customer champions span the globe for reasons so that there's always somebody online 24 hours a day. So come join us.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love the way Zapier has such a global mindset with hiring. It sounds like you don't restrict time zones or anything. You just welcome everyone and make it work. Pacing, whatever.
Absolutely. Yep.
Anyway. Let's see. We have a message from Kay. I read your article on how to be old in tech. I've read that too. And I really relate to it. I'm working on switching careers from branding into tech/design. And I was wondering what advice you have for me, maybe not to feel intimidated, etc., as I work toward beginning a career that is populated by people almost half my age. Great question.
Yeah, so absolutely don't be intimidated. I would love to tell you that imposter syndrome goes away the longer you work in the industry, but I'm definitely not going to tell you that because it's not true. You'll wrestle with that no matter where you start. No matter how long you've been in the industry, there are going to be days where you're like, yes, I am a computer professional, but I literally have no idea what this code is saying to me right now. So like but that's kind of the joy of software development. Honestly, there are days where you're like, this is just a random collection of symbols that mean nothing. And there are days when you're like, I'm the master of all code in the universe and I can do anything. And that's what keeps you going, is that it's going to be highs and lows like that. So I would love to tell you it's all even, but it doesn't. But yeah, just, I mean, honestly, go for it. I saw something the other day that was like, you know, if you are 32 and this program takes 4 years, you'll be 36 at the end of it. You're going to be 36 in 4 years, regardless of what you do, right? So you're always, that's never a factor. If it's something that excites you and you enjoy it, go for it. There's going to be a community to support you, and there are going to be people who are interested in hiring you no matter what age you are. And yeah, I would say tech definitely has an ageism problem, but I think it's also a thing that's turning around, frankly, because there's olds like me that get stompy about it. And I'm like, you want to get rid of all this institutional knowledge? We know a lot. We've seen these trends come and go. We know that this is the fad and it's going to go away in 2 years. So you maybe want to pad your, you know, you maybe want to have a disaster relief plan for in 2 years when this framework isn't hot anymore. You know, like it's I actually got a job that way, where they were looking for somebody who had been working with React for 3 to 5 years, at a point when React was only like 2 or 3 years old, and that's fine. But I was like, let me show you the JavaScript framework adoption and abandonment charts. They look like the Himalayas. Every 2 years, it's something else. Do you want somebody who only knows this, or somebody with a proven track record of language acquisition? And they fell for it, and they hired me. So you can talk your way into any job, frankly.
That's great. I know Kay is also mentioning that she would love mentoring from you. I think maybe I can drop your email address in the chat. So anyone who's interested in talking to you more. Was it lisa.smith@zapier.com?
Zapier.com, that's right. Mm-hmm. And I'm also Lisa at Women Who Code, and you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm and Twitter. I'm Lisa D. Smith on Twitter.
Yeah, I know you have a somewhat common name, but I think you're easy to find because just search Lisa Zapier. You'll find Lisa.
You probably will.
Yeah. Next question. Do you test prospective engineers on data structures and algorithm?
So that's a great question. I think the current backend test does not have algorithms. We don't have your standard code test. What we're trying to do is give you something that's as close to our real world working as possible. So lots of API manipulation. If you want to come work at Zapier, know about APIs. Also, microservices are super hot. We're decomposing our monolith into microservices like kind of everybody is, but like that's, if you know anything about microservices, lean in. Also, SREs, we're looking for you. I know you're unicorns, but come hang out with us. We're cool. We need you. But yeah, it's not like a standard code where you're just like foobar baz, run through this array for me. We don't do that. We could try to give you something that's as close to what you'd be working on at Zapier as possible.
Right. So next and last question we have here, does Zapier appreciate automation projects built with something other than Zapier, like Puppeteer, when applying for a dev position?
Sure. If you've automated anything, that means the mindset behind an automation that is really appealing to us. If you've thought through how to reduce your overhead on a particular project, it doesn't really matter the tool set. And honestly, come talk to us about Puppeteer. We'd probably love to hear about that too.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I know everyone's really grateful you're here. I see lots of thank yous in the chat. And I think that's all of our questions for now. It's really exciting, especially I'm sure for our audience, to hear that Zapier is going to be doing so much hiring. There are definitely possibilities there. And we encourage everyone to apply and give it a go.
Yes, please. And thank you so much for having me. I had a great time.
Awesome. So thank you so much, Lisa. Thank you, everyone who joined. Thank you, everyone.